The sun was merciless that afternoon. The sky burned a pale white, and the streets shimmered as if they were melting under the weight of the heat. In a corner of a quiet alley, a little girl sat on the cracked pavement, her tiny arms wrapped around her knees. Sweat trickled down her forehead, and her lips trembled. She tugged at her mother's sleeve, her voice cracking as she whispered, "Please, Mom, it's too hot." Her mother, a frail woman with tired eyes and calloused hands, bent down beside her. She brushed the girl's hair away from her flushed face, her own heart breaking with every word. She wanted to be strong, but the truth was cruel. There was no air conditioning, no fan, not even enough water left in the bottle she carried. She whispered back, "Hold on, sweetheart. Just a little longer. Mommy's here." But the girl's small body shook as she sobbed. Her voice carried through the alley like a knife cutting silence. Passers-by looked but quickly turned their heads away. Nobody wanted to see. Nobody wanted to stop. It was easier to ignore the suffering of strangers than to face it. The mother held her child close, but her thoughts raced wildly. Rent was overdue. Work had been scarce. The few coins in her pocket wouldn't even buy a loaf of bread. And now, as the sun blazed down, her daughter's desperate cries made her feel like the worst kind of failure. A mother who couldn't protect the one soul she loved more than life itself. She closed her eyes, whispering prayers no one seemed to hear. "Please, God, send us a little mercy." And then something happened. A sleek black car rolled to a stop nearby. Its polished body gleamed under the ruthless sun. People turned their heads, whispering. It wasn't the kind of car one often saw in this struggling neighborhood. The door opened slowly, and out stepped a man dressed in a sharp suit. His presence was commanding, the kind that made the crowd pause. His wristwatch gleamed, his shoes untouched by dust, his aura screaming of success and power. But his eyes softened the moment they fell upon the little girl and her mother. The girl lifted her head, tears streaking her cheeks, and in her broken, trembling voice, she repeated, "Please, Mom, it's too hot." The man froze. That single cry cut through him like thunder. Memories he had buried long ago came flooding back. Memories of his own childhood, the suffocating heat of a summer he could never forget, the feeling of helplessness, the way he too had once cried out for relief and found none. His jaw tightened. He took a step forward. The mother instinctively pulled her daughter closer, unsure of who this stranger was. She was used to rejection, to pitying glances and harsh words. But this man's face was different. It carried not pity, but urgency. Without a word, he shrugged off his suit jacket and gently draped it over the little girl's shoulders. The fabric, though far too large, shielded her fragile frame from the blazing sun. Then he crouched down to her level, his voice calm but firm. "Don't cry, little one. You won't suffer like this anymore." The mother blinked in shock. The crowd whispered louder now. Who was this man? Why was he stopping? Why did he care? The millionaire glanced up at the mother, his gaze steady, unwavering. "Ma'am," he said, "I know this may sound strange, but I can't just walk away. Not this time." And in that moment, everything began to change. The air was still, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The mother stared at the stranger kneeling before her daughter, torn between fear and fragile hope. She had met countless people in her life, some cruel, some indifferent, and very few kind. But this man's presence was different. His eyes didn't look down on them. His tone didn't carry pity. It carried something stronger, something almost personal. The little girl sniffled, clutching the oversized jacket that now shielded her tiny body. She peeked up at the man with wide, tear-filled eyes, as though trying to understand why someone like him would stop for someone like her. The man spoke softly, almost as if he were speaking to his younger self. "I know what it's like," he whispered. "To feel forgotten, to cry for help and think nobody is listening. I promised myself long ago, if I ever found someone in that same pain, I would never walk away." The mother's lips trembled. "Sir, we don't need charity. We just need to survive." He shook his head firmly. "No, this isn't charity. This is redemption." He stood up, pulled out his phone, and with a tone that left no room for hesitation, He gave an order. Within minutes, another car arrived, this one carrying bottles of water, fresh fruit, and a portable fan that whirred softly, pushing away the suffocating heat. The little girl gasped as the cool breeze touched her face. She laughed, a sound so pure, so innocent, it drew tears to the mother's eyes. But the man wasn't done. He turned to the mother. "What's your name?" Her voice was soft. "Clara." "Clara," he repeated as if memorizing it. "Listen carefully. You don't deserve to beg for scraps in the shadows. You've fought hard enough. From today, you and your daughter won't have to worry about the sun, or the rent, or even the next meal. I'm going to help you stand again." The crowd gasped. Whispers filled the air. Some called him a fool, others admired his boldness. But none could deny the power of the moment. Clara shook her head, overwhelmed. "Why us? Why now?" The man's gaze grew distant, his voice heavy with memory. "Because once I was that child. My mother held me as I cried from the heat, from hunger, from despair. And no one stopped. No one cared. She didn't survive it. But I did. I built an empire, Clara. I became the man people respect, but inside, I never stopped being that little boy. Helping you now isn't a choice. It's a promise I made years ago." Clara's knees weakened. She clutched her daughter, tears flowing freely. For the first time in years, hope didn't feel like a cruel illusion. It felt real. The man reached into his pocket and handed her a small card. "Tomorrow go to this address. It's my office. Tell them I sent you. I'll make sure you're given work, a safe home, and support. Not as a handout, but as a new beginning. All I ask is that you never give up on yourself again." The little girl, her voice fragile yet filled with wonder, whispered, "Are you an angel?" The man smiled, his eyes glistening. "No, sweetheart. Just someone who refuses to ignore your cry." And with that, he turned and walked back to his car. But the world around Clara and her daughter had already shifted. Strangers who had once looked away now stepped forward, offering kind words, small tokens, encouragement. It was as if the man's single act of courage had awakened the humanity in everyone around them. As the black car disappeared into the distance, Clara looked at her daughter. For the first time, her heart wasn't weighed down by despair. It was carried by possibility. She hugged the little girl tightly, whispering, "It's going to be okay. I believe it now." That day, under the blazing sun, a mother and child discovered something far greater than relief from the heat. They discovered that miracles don't always come with wings. Sometimes they arrive in the form of a man who remembers his own pain and chooses to turn it into someone else's hope.